How y'all doing, everybody? This is Dion Langley again, lupus advocate, lupus warrior, coming to you again with another episode of Living with Lupus. I'm going to piggyback off the video I did last week, which was recognize. It's 4 steps that you have to understand when you deal with lupus and when you have lupus. And last week I did a video on recognize. And that was one of the first steps. If you didn't get a chance to see that video, you can go back on my YouTube page. I still have it posted up there. So the topic for today, like I said last week, the first step was recognize. This week is you have to release. You have to release. Release is a key component because releasing your frustrations when it comes to lupus, it's a real huge deal. Once you recognize it and you understand that you recognize I have lupus, now you got all this internal frustration, these internal thoughts, your mind is turning every which way. So after you recognize it, now you got so much stuff mentally that you're holding on to, probably not even understanding why. And it's just bottling up inside your body. But in order to get rid of that, you have to release. So today I want to talk about releasing it. You're going to be frustrated. You're gonna ask questions. You're gonna cry. I cried for so many days, so many nights, months, weeks, years. Again, it took me almost 3 years to even come out and let people know that I had lupus. I got diagnosed in 2010. I didn't start saying anything till the later part of 2012. I held it in for so long. Didn't tell my family, my friends, anybody that knew me, they didn't know I had lupus. And I was around them day in and day out. Because I was holding it in. I was still frustrated with it. I was still scared. I was still contemplating and trying to figure out why. But after 2012, when I realized my whole mindset and things shifted for me, it's because I had, like I said, I did step 1, which I had to recognize it. Once I recognized it, now I'm at step 2, and I had to release it. When I released it, I had to, like I said, I had to cry. I think that's probably the main thing that did it for me. I had to cry because I had all these thoughts bottled up in me, held in. I felt like I couldn't talk to nobody. I felt like nobody would understand me. I was a man that that have lupus, and when I got diagnosed, I couldn't even call and ask nobody, what is, I'm a man that have lupus, what do I do? Like, I was just that scared. Lupus in man just weren't big at the time, and still to this day we still got to push to get to that point to where we make lupus visible for man as well. So imagine me sitting there, saying I got this disease that I have no clue about, can't talk to anybody about, and that frustration and all that, it was turning me up for 2 whole years straight. So I had to get past that point in order to start defeating lupus. There's no way I can defeat lupus if I'm still frustrated about it. So in order to get past that frustration point, I had to release. I had to release a whole lot of things. I had to release frustrations. I had to release fears. I had to release doubt. I had to release, any type of negative thought or anything that I had about lupus. And at the same time, when you release it, you start a transition. Okay? You start a transition. It may not be a huge transition or a big physical transition, but you begin to look at yourself in a different light, in a whole different atmosphere, because you carry so much weight of holding your frustrations about lupus internally. When you begin to let it go, everything else starts to really flow for you. And now once you release it, now you're starting to get to the point to where you're educating yourself more, to where you're asking questions, you're going online, you're going on the websites, seeing different things that you can do to, you know, to probably find out and help your own body. And for me, like I said, once I released that frustration, then I started going on the internet searching. started looking, started realizing, trying to figure out ways, you know, trying to ask more questions when I go to my doctor's appointments, trying to see, can I, you know, get in touch with people that was like me, that had the same thing, you know, the same disease, the same ailments and aches and pains that I was dealing with. I was, you know, beginning to reach out to people and see if they were going through the same things. So release is so important, and I think that's a major step, because people, you know, people acknowledge it, like, okay, step one, you can acknowledge it and begin to move on. But if you skip over step two and go on to the next step, you still holding, so you holding everything in that you could have let go. And then you find yourself, your body's worn down, you're mentally wearing yourself down, not even understand that you haven't released the frustrations of you having lupus. And of course, it's definitely frustrating. And I totally agree, and I totally understand. But I want you all to really recognize and release. Going back to step one, recognize and release. Those two go, they work hand in hand. You can't release it until you recognize. You can't release your fears until you recognize what your fear is. You can't release your frustration until you recognize what your frustration is. My frustration was lupus, because I didn't know. I didn't understand. Did not understand it. Didn't even try to, because I had to recognize before I could release it. So make sure any lupus warrior, any type of anything that you're dealing with, it ain't even probably got to be with lupus. It can be with any ailment or any type of, you know, frustration that you may be dealing with. In order for you to release it, you have to recognize it. So step 1 and 2 work hand in hand. Again, as I said last week, recognize it. Once you recognize it, now you begin to make the stages into going forward. So you can't go from step 2 and not do step 1. All right, you can't go from step 1 to step 4. You got to go 1, 2, 3, 4. It's all a process. So once you recognize it, now you release it. Releasing it gonna make you feel so good, because it just feel like a dead weight. I held on to a dead weight because I kept so much of that in. So when I released that frustration, I cried. I cried so many nights because I didn't understand it. But once I was able to release it, I noticed how my mind, my thought process just started triggering differently, because I had to let it go. I said, hey, okay, I got it. I'm upset about it. Yes, I don't understand it, but you know what? I have to move forward. This is my life. I have to figure this thing out. So I recognized it. So now I got to release all the frustration. So I'm telling you, lupus warriors, release the frustration. Once you release it, now you begin to move forward. Please understand this. Release it. You have to let it go. If you keep it bottled up inside, I guarantee you, you're not just wearing yourself down mentally, but it's going to wear you down physically. Because you can't beat lupus all the time physically. Lupus is a mental battle. If you win the battle mentally, it makes you feel better physically. 9 out of 10 people that have a hard time dealing with lupus, it's because they're mentally frustrated with lupus. So when they get mentally frustrated, it wears on their body. That's the first thing that it affects. When you get mentally frustrated with lupus, it wears on your body physically. So now you can't do the little things that you want to do. And then when you can't do that, it makes it more frustrating for you. So release that frustration. Release that frustration. All right, this is step 2. I will be back with step 3 on next week. And I hope this video was enlightening for you all. If you got any questions, comments, or concerns, please email me at drumforlupus@gmail.com. That's drum, the number 4, lupus@gmail.com. Follow my YouTube channel. Follow me on Instagram, Drum for Lupus. I'm on Instagram, Drum for Lupus. And let's just continue to spread the word. Get this lupus research up, because at the end of the day, the goal is to get a cure. And we fight this thing until we can't fight it no more. But that's our goal. Spread awareness. Let's keep pushing. I love you all, and I'll see you next week.